All right, where we left off, we had been working on the Phillips curve, and let me see if I can widen this out here. We've been working on the Phillips curve and all the different places it could be. Okay, so this is a recession. All right, so yesterday or the last video, we were just talking about what it looks like on the Phillips curve. But what you're going to need to know is you're going to need to be able to line the Phillips curve up side by side with ADSRAS. So what I want you to do is pause the video here and copy this in your notes. Okay, so now, I forgot to say unpause it, but I hope you did. Anyway, what I want you to do here now is let's discuss this, okay? Because you will be doing this at some point in an essay. And if you're in my second semester, 2019-2020, you're doing it tomorrow, which is Friday. Okay, so anyway, what you do is you line them up side by side. And one thing we've noticed, for those of you who are, those of you who understand this, you get this. You should already know what a recession is. Looking there on the left on ADSRAS, that means there's not enough gas in the tank. Unemployment is high and inflation is low. Okay, and on the right, what I hopefully understand, if you look at that, you see that unemployment high is and inflation is low. Okay, and so, but the way the graphs look, again, for those of you who understand this, you're fine. For those of you who are just hanging on by your fingernails and you want to get as good a grade as you can, here's one easy way to do this. The intersecting point is on opposite sides of the straight line. You see on the left, it is to the left of the straight line, the LRAS. And on the Phillips curve on the right, the intersecting point is to the right of the straight line, which is the LRPC. Okay, moving on to the next slide. This is what an inflationary gap looks like, and it's exact opposite. Okay, so if you look on the left side, ADSRAS, you see that there's too much gas in the tank, or prices are too high. Prices are high, unemployment is low. And then on the right side, you see the same thing, but the intersecting point is to the left. So again, they're exact opposites. On the left side, the ADSRAS, the intersecting point is to the right. On the Phillips curve, which is on the right, the intersecting point is to the left, okay? Because in this case, there is too much gas in the tank, and inflation is high, and unemployment is low, okay? Next slide, and you're going to copy this in your notes. So what I should see when I grade your notes is these side-by-side graphs here in your notes. And then the third place the economy can be is, I didn't realize I had this thing set up so inflationary gap was not fit in here. Okay, anyway, that's what's going on. The third place the economy can be is long and short run equilibrium. And I'll pick up the top up here so you can see that up here at the top. Long and short run equilibrium. And again, you can pause this and copy this in your notes. Okay, hopefully you've unpaused it now. And what you see here is you see on, that on both of these situations, the intersecting point is on the straight line. On the ADSRAS graph, it is at long run aggregate supply. And on the Phillips curve, the intersection point is right there on the LRPC, the long run Phillips curve. And these are both exactly alike. There's just exactly enough air in the tire. It's not overinflated or underinflated. Again, hopefully you understand this. I know I'm going kind of fast here. Hopefully you understand this, but if you don't, you can kind of memorize this and hopefully understanding will come a little bit later. Okay. Moving on, I'm going to give you some mnemonic devices here. Okay, so let's look at mnemonic devices for the ADSRAS. I really hadn't done these before, but we'll try this here now. And so what we have here is aggregate price level LRAS, SRAS, and AD. And hopefully you have this memorized, but I did kind of come up with a mnemonic device here. For those of you who are struggling, it's been a while since we talked about this, and I'm not in class to help you out. I went to, as many of you know, this Christian university that made us run. Now, for you cross-country track guys, the amount that we had to run a 1.5 mile test every semester. in our senior year to graduate, we had to run a 3-mile test. And it was timed. And if you didn't run in a certain amount of time, you failed your PE class, which was called aerobics proficiency, and you also didn't graduate. So it literally meant if you could not run 3 miles in a certain amount of time, then you couldn't graduate. And I know you all think that's ridiculous. A lot of us did too. But being as this was a private school, it was very expensive. We shut up and we did it. And it, maybe wasn't necessarily a very, very hard time, but you had to run it. And so what I learned, I had to learn how to run, to jog, because I'd never done that. And so we kind of had this kind of rule, because what some people do when they jog, when they get tired, they stop and walk. And so I kind of found that that was ridiculous. Once you stopped and started walking in the middle of a run, you were never going to run again. So if you look here at this ALSAR, I would say all losers stop and rest. If the word loser offends you, you can put all lions stop and relax. Okay, first off, you need to just memorize this. But if you can't memorize it, then a mnemonic device is good. And when you do your essays, you're going to have to get this exactly right. So, my advice to you would be to make up your own mnemonic devices. Okay. All right. Moving on to the next one. All right. The next thing we have to worry about here is the Phillips curve. And the Phillips curve is pretty simple. And you can see here is that we have an I for inflation rate, and we have this thing, which some people said looked like an L, and then you have a U here. And of course, I don't close my circles. This is what the students came up with one year for a mnemonic device, and it's worked so well, we've used it ever since.
The reason we're smiling is because of you, Barney. Today's been really special.
Of course, every day is special when you spend it with people you love.
Hopefully that did not make you want to drop out of school, but I can just tell you, only so much of that I can take. All right, the great purple dinosaur. All right, that was the simplistic one. Here is, let me see what we came up with here. Here is a more complicated one, if this helps. Because you got to remember, you got to do the LRPC and the SRPC. And so you can make up whatever you want, but if you think of this, of course, as an L, I came up with I largely like seeing you. I largely, I largely like seeing you. I've done it so many times, I just have it memorized. But you guys are going to have to do this on your essay, and you have to memorize it. So my advice would be to come up with your own mnemonic device. All right, let's go on with the lecture here. All right, in general, there's an inverse relation. You're going to write all this down, of course. There's an inverse relationship between unemployment and inflation. Okay, and we're going to see it right here. What you see here in the blue is the unemployment rate. When you see here in the red is the inflation rate. And they, to some extent, are kind of, I don't know if the word is mirror images. One goes down, the other one goes up. Generally speaking, sometimes they don't. Like right now, during this coronavirus, unemployment is soaring. And if you notice, a lot of businesses out there, I think Pizza Hut's running pizzas 50% off. My favorite hammock manufacturer is called Hennessy. I have 4 of their big hammocks. Actually, I think I have maybe 5 of them now, but I have several of them, and they've got a huge sale running. And so what's happening, because unemployment, as of today, this is Thursday, is 6.6 million people are unemployed. We've gone from the lowest unemployment rate in the United States to the highest in many, many years. And what should be happening is prices should be dropping. Now, food, I think, of course, is going up. But everybody else, if you're selling food, if you're cutting grass, people are so afraid of being around other people, price levels should be dropping everywhere. Or as companies are desperate to try to get customers in the front door, or to let them deliver to, and also because employees who've lost their jobs, 6.6 million people unemployed, that they will work for just about nothing. Anyway, moving on here. So here's the short run Phillips curve again. And again, you're going to write this in your notes. It's going to be a lot of graphs here in your notes. And when the economy is overheating, you can write this, there's low unemployment but high inflation. So if you look right here, in this example, there's 2% unemployment, 5% inflation. That's pretty high inflation, and unemployment is very low. When there's a recession, write this down, unemployment is high, but inflation is low. And that should be what's going on right now. Inflation should be very low right now, 1%. And I don't know what unemployment is. It's 6.6 million. Remember, people not looking for work don't count. But in this example here, you have high unemployment and low inflation. Now, I want you to write this down. What happens when SRAS shifts to the left? If you remember way back from weeks ago, I taught you that is a lose-lose. Remember, we talked about that's what would happen if somebody raised the minimum wage dramatically, or if the price of oil or electricity had a dramatic increase. What that means is on the other graph, which is not showing here on this screen, but on the other graph, you can see my hands here, and the other graph, SRAS is shifting up to the left. I realize on the video here that's to the right, but if it shifts up to the left, that is a lose-lose. Because what I told you back then was you get high unemployment and high inflation. Now, watch what that does to the short run Phillips curve. And you see the red there. I realize that's maybe a bad color to use with a red background. But if you look right here, all we've done with a moving in inflation and unemployment is move along this line. But watch what happens when inflation and unemployment both go up. Now, some of you math types out there can probably already see in your mind what is going to happen. But let us see it here. Okay, it is going to pop out. The entire line is going to shift. We're going to talk more about that later, but let's move on here. And one other thing to point out, in the long run, so draw this in your notes, the long run Phillips curve, in the short run, inflation and unemployment, again, are like a seesaw. One goes up, the other one goes down. But in the long run, and I realize you can't see the top of the lecture here, so let me pull this up. You can see the top, short run versus long run. I want you to write this down. In the long run, there's no trade-off between inflation and unemployment. In other words, in the long run, we're going to adjust back to this line. Now, one reason some of you aren't going to understand this, at least for the second semester of 2019-2020, I keep referring to that because I may use this video in the future. One reason you may not recognize this is I never really finished talking about sticky wages. I will clearly need to do that before we get to the AP exam, but you can go ahead and write this right now. In the long run, there is no trade-off between inflation and unemployment. And that straight line, which is just like the LRAS, is going to be synonymous with the natural rate of unemployment. And hopefully you get that. And at this point, we're going to stop section 2 of this video.